This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
"12 months ago, iRacing released their very first street circuit, and just a week later, the classic Indycar series had their first race on the streets of Detroit. This circuit has proven that anything can happen, and today, it most certainly will. Today, we head back to Belle for 72 laps of racing, where we expect that drivers will triumph, and some may end up planted in a concrete wall. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to RaceSpotTV and the iRacing Esports Network for the iconic graphics Grand Prix of Detroit, with Jack Striles and Randy Chenoweth bringing you all of the action. And Randy, this circuit will catch out even the best of drivers when they least expect it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. This being really the only proper street circuit we have currently on the iRacing service. You can maybe count Montreal up in there as well, but this is easily the tightest that we have on the service. And with these old classic Indy cars, the RO5s, it's going to be very difficult for these guys to buzz around.
And of course, today is brought to you by the guys over at Iconics Graphics. They are providing you with the Grand Prix of Detroit, and they are proud sponsor of both this race and the Las Vegas race later on this year. Iconic Graphics supports all of your personalized vinyl needs, including car wraps, decals, t-shirts, hats, and more. Whether you have a league like the Classic IndyCar Series that you want to create shirts for, or you want a decal for your team's logo on your desktop tower, Iconics Graphics can do it all. Please visit them on Instagram at iconics_graphics for more details. And if you mention the Classic IndyCar Series, you'll get a 10% discount. They'll also be donating 4 shirts to the overall champion, the oval champion, the road champion, and the rookie of the year. League members can also purchase their gear by contacting them and mentioning that you want the Classic IndyCar Series hat, shirt, or decal. Of course, that's all brought to you today with the Iconic Graphics Grand Prix of Detroit. And well, there's only one driver who can show you around this very difficult circuit today, and that's Josh Belle. Let's go for a lap on board.
Welcome to Detroit for your 2019 Iconic Graphics Grand Prix of Detroit. Lucas LaVille will be driving you around the bumpy Belle Isle for the track tour. Entering the high-speed S-bend of 1 and 2, we will have to watch out for the bump exiting turn 2 that ends many drivers and an occasional pace car's day. Going down the long stretch, we will hit speeds of nearly 170 miles per hour. Entering turn 3, we will brake as late as possible to make this slow 90-degree right-hand turn. Turns 4 through 6 will be slow and tight. With cement walls closing in on both sides of the track, there will not be much room for more than single file going through here, and not much room for error. Exiting 6, the car can get really loose, so we will have to feather the throttle to avoid spinning. Going down the backstretch, we will hit one of the few passing opportunities on the track, so expect to see some action here. Entering turns 7 through 11 at 150 miles per hour, we will brake hard to keep our speed as late as possible. It is a series of corners that represents a carousel and will be very technical to navigate, with turns 9 and 10 relying on downforce to carry more speed through the corners. We hit a small stretch of road before slowing down for turn 12, which is a small right-hand turn, followed by a faster right-hand turn 13. We will be gaining speed and be able to hit turn 14 at full speed going through the final stretch of the track. This has been a Logykal Classic IndyCar Series track tour brought to you by Lucas LaVille and Josh Baird. I hope you enjoy the race.
Qualifying is currently underway on the streets of Detroit, just over 6 minutes gone, 4 minutes left for these drivers to get the times in that they need to set the grid. And of course, qualifying here today is going to be very important as they head into the 72-lap Grand Prix of Detroit. Overtaking's difficult here, Randy. It's always a circuit which has shown some surprises, so getting yourself high up the order is going to be something you want to do. And for Josh Chin, someone who's had a few struggles over the last few races, today is going to be very important about getting it right.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that one. He's put in a very good time here, though. Currently sits second quickest, only behind Matt Cook, who, of course, is your current championship points leader. But you're absolutely right. You need to qualify well here. It's a very, very tight racetrack. Of course, this being a street circuit, very bumpy. I expect a lot of problems here today with some cars in the wall. Probably going to see a very, very high attrition rate, which is traditional here at these sorts of racetracks.
And currently, the top of the standings is, of course, Matt Cook. Josh Chin currently sitting in second. For you drivers to watch out for today, Joni Kainen's looking fast. Jos van der Ven, usually someone who sits in the mid-pack in that 167 machine, currently qualified in fourth. So someone who could be very competitive today. A few drivers who aren't taking part as well. Zachary Savahar, Jonathan Diggs and Randy Shoemake will not be starting today's race. They've decided that the streets of Detroit are just going to be that little bit too much for them, and I think that's important. All the drivers as well under strict instructions, Randy, as to if they do end up in an incident and are looking as though they're going to be blocking the circuit, is to take that tow. So for a lot of these drivers today, that tow is going to be very important if they do end up in an incident.
Yeah, and like you said, the blocking of the racetrack is there's potential for it there, and we might see a full course yellow today. One of the few tracks where I think that's actually really quite likely. So for all these drivers, you got to stay safe, you need to stay cool, and you need to be smart, especially through a couple of these tighter segments out there on the racetrack. You know, you come off of turn 6 in towards turn 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. That entire sort of almost infield section of the racetrack, you can almost call it, is extraordinarily tight and extraordinarily narrows. And I think if we see a track blockage, that's likely where it's going to come from. Of course, it's also the classic place to spin around here is the exit off of turn 2 with that bump. We've even seen pace cars spin out there under pacing conditions. Yes,
of course, the Grand Prix of Detroit around this time last year, the pace car driver having a few issues with that turn 3 and the bump on the exit. Hopefully no such shenanigans will happen here today or later on in the Indycar race, because of course Detroit is a doubleheader for the Indycar series. We saw the first race yesterday, the second will be on directly after this. So you can watch the virtual Grand Prix of Detroit and then all go and watch the real world Grand Prix of Detroit as we enter the last minute of qualifying. Everyone looks as though they're starting to put in the final few laps, and we've got a new driver at the top of the standings, Randy. Josh Chin has gone 6/10 clear at the top of Matt Cook.
He's going to be more than happy with that, but he's still going to have to get it done in the race. We've seen him a handful of times this season already, put in an amazing qualifying performance, but only a couple times have we seen him really put in that sort of same race performance. There's been a lot of recovery drives for Josh this far this season. Now he's got to go out and he's got to sort of finish it to a certain extent here with this race here today as we finish up the qualifying here in the next 30 seconds.
So in about 30 seconds, the drivers will be heading themselves down on to the track to get themselves gridded up, ready for the start of this race. It's not a full pace lap here at Detroit. They only do about the last third of the circuit, so there's not much time for these drivers to get everything sorted. And of course, the setups here today as well. It's all about how well the car is going to be dealing with the bumps. Go to the grid
when the music hits.
Qualifying is going to be coming to an end in around 2 or 3 seconds, and everyone now cemented into their positions. Joshua Chin taking the pole with a time of 1 minute 15.161, around 6/10 clear of Matt Cook, who will be lining up alongside him on the front row. Robert Grosser and Joni Kainen will be making up row number 2, with Jos van der Ven and Lucas Laville making up row 3. 7th and 8th is going to go to Henry Bennett and Hans Pitkanen, and then rounding out the top 10 is going to be Timo Sinyemi and Carsten Brodby. Andrew Wood is going to be lining up 11th with Daniel Schulmeister in 12th, Jan Hoffman 13th, Mike Gerlich 14th, Josh Baird 15th, Marshall Stanley 16th. Tristan Hauser is going to be lining up in the 18th, or Frank Joseph Stum, 17th, Tristan Hauser 18th, Andrew Adair Saunders is going to be 19th, and Andrew Aitken down in 20th. The last driver to put a qualifying time in is going to be Tom Zeiger, and he's going to be lining up 21st. The rest of your grid look as though they are going to be non-starters here today at Detroit as everyone starts to make their way down onto the grid. Last few adjustments on the car, Randy. It's going to be all about that start. The position they get into not only turn 1 but also turn 3 at the end of that straight.
Yep, now you need to calm your nerves. You're going to want to be excited, of course, with this being the start of the race. And the thing is with these guys, it's a very short run to start this thing. It's not really a pace lap. It's more of like a pace football pitch is what they have here before that pace car cuts off and down towards pit road. So not a long time to get yourself settled in, but you need to do the best you can to get yourself calmed down and get yourself in a good mindset. Get yourself single file in towards turn 1, in towards turn 2 the best you possibly can. And if you're side by side, don't push it too crazy through those parts of the racetrack you need to make sure you survive lap 1 and 2, turn 1 and 2 here.
And that is going to be all important. Surviving that first lap is going to be what these drivers need to do. In just a few seconds time, everyone will be getting going behind the pace car, and as Randy said, it is very much a short pace lap. They will navigate themselves through turn 12 and 13 and then through 14, but 14 will be without the pace car, and then we're under green flag racing conditions as the drivers will pull away from this dummy grid. Josh Chin will be left under the control of the field as they head themselves into turn number 1 for 72 laps of racing here at the Belle circuit, Motor City, Detroit. And the pace car will dive himself down onto the inside, into the pit lane. And we'll be racing for 72 laps. The pace car goes. And so does Josh Chin. We're racing at Detroit. A beautiful start from Mr. Chin. Already getting a nice advantage over Matt Cook as he heads himself into turn 1. 3 or 4 car lengths. A little bit further behind. Robert Grosser looking to the inside. Lucas Seville looks as though he's made up a position as well over Jos van der Ven. Everyone now navigating their way through turn number 2 and this long run down to turn number 3. But so far, Randy, everyone's got a clean start.
Yeah, but everyone's clean through so far. A couple side-by-side moments up the field, but for the most part, everyone's single filing out. You see that side-by-side as they work down through turn 4, in towards turn 5, the first kind of tight technical sector of the racetrack. You're going to then go up a short rise towards turn 6, down the back straightaway for the first time, down Strand Drive, and the run in towards turn 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, which gets very tight and very technical indeed.
It does, and just at the back of the field, there was a little bit of squabbling going into turn number 3, 4, and 5. Everyone going side by side, but as they head themselves down into turn number 7 and this fountain section for the very first time, everyone seems as though they've just sorted themselves out, running line astern, which is what you need to do here at Detroit to make sure you aren't involved in an incident. And up at the front of the field, Joshua Chin has walked away with it, already 1.2 seconds to the good over Matt Cook, who is currently dealing with Joni Kynan behind just 7/10.
Yeah, that gap is still actually stretched out pretty big considering it's just the opening lap here. Now starting lap 2 of number 72. I'm happy to see what we saw from this field at this race start. Everyone being nice and calm, cool and collected. No one really pushing anything too crazy. Everyone single filed their way out as quickly as they can. Really respecting this racetrack and respecting their competitors as well.
As Lucas Seville has made a move for Robert Grosser, and that is for 4th position. So Grosser down 2 positions on where he started in 3rd. Clearly had good qualifying pace, but maybe struggling in these opening stages of the race. Jos van der Ven as well, he's down 1 position in 6th, so not getting a great start, but Lucas Seville got a good one along with Joshua Chin. He's already 3 seconds to the good out the front of the field as Matt Cook has yielded to Joni Kynan. So Joni Kynan is up into 2nd position. Matt Cook obviously feeling that either he couldn't keep the driver behind or that it wasn't worth battling this early on in the race.
We're taking a peek to see what happened with the 6 car. Maybe there was something wrong. Oh yeah, there was. The 6 car had a bit of a half spin coming through. I believe it was turn 5 as you turn up towards Strand Drive. Had a bit of a wiggle and then he ended up letting Joni Kynan through because of that. So maybe not feeling entirely confident as Matt Cook. We don't typically see those sorts of mistakes from him, but he ends up yielding the position regardless and just slots himself quietly into 3rd.
And we have had a couple of drivers hit trouble in these opening stages. Tristan Hauser in the 56 looks as though he's taken the toe back to the pit lane. Same for the 23 of Josh Baird. So clearly some drivers faulting at early stages. Franz-Josef Stumm and Tom Ziegler, they've also made visits to the pit lane, Randy. So people coming in for early repairs. Matt Molnar as well, another driver who's hit issues. So a lot of drivers now faulting in these early stages. I count 4 drivers that we've already lost in 3 laps.
We're looking at what happened here to Mike Gerlicka and Tristan Hauser, and wasn't much Hauser could really do. Gerlicka ahead of him just sort of plowed off into the outside wall. I think just went into turn entry a little bit too hot, and not much Tristan could ever do to avoid there, so unfortunate. Oh, and then Tristan just mixed the next corner. That gets the 23 car involved. We'll rewind the cameras back again because I didn't notice the secondary incident. Just saw the original one, so we'll bring that back up to get a look at what exactly happened here. You'll see on the TV cameras sort of the first incident here in a moment, and then it's the second one that I think was really terminal for a couple of these guys.
As we look a little bit further up the field, we have got a battle going on for, looks like, 5th place. This is between Jos van der Ven and Robert Grosser, two drivers who have both lost out on the start as Josh Chin sets the fastest lap of the race so far. The first driver to drop below the 1:17s. Between Jos van der Ven and Robert Grosser, the two looking a little bit dicey. Currently split by about half a second, Randy, but they've lost a lot of time between the two to the front four. They're already down by about five seconds on the driver of Joni Kainen, and they're about 3 seconds back from Lucas Laville as it stands.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that one. These two still very tight, though, are Lucas Laville and Matt Cook. So things not going super great here for Matt as he continues to fall backwards. And this is going to be exactly what Lucas Laville wants. As you look down, actually, the nose of that car, if you look carefully, you can see one of the problems with this racetrack, already a little bit of damage here, it looks like, for Timo. Couple points on the nose where the stickers don't line up perfect as they did before the car would have rolled off. So likely a couple bits of damage. And actually, if you look at the right side pod where the right mirror is mounted, you can see that the seams there in the side pod don't match up perfectly as well. So maybe a couple slight brushes with the wall, but overall I believe the road course version of the car is still going to be all right. We're not on the super speedways, so those little minorities in terms of damage aren't going to be a huge thing and make a huge difference here.
And of course, one thing these drivers also need to watch out for is those curbs. They're very high curbs here at Detroit. Could very easily upset the car if you hit it too hard, or even worse, damage that floor. As soon as you damage the floor in a high downforce car, such as these IRO 5s, you are going to be down on straight line speed, down on corner pace as well. Really going to be hurting all the way around this circuit. This circuit isn't a top speed kind of place, Randy. It's much more about it's a very technical circuit, actually, is the way to put it. As everyone now heads themselves onto their 5th lap of the race, but there are sections of this corner where you do want the aero, that having something like floor damage, which could be caused by striking a curb too hard, will damage your race. Yeah,
you are right. I mean, especially I think turn 1 and 2 are really the best example of a part of the track that you want the aerodynamics. Through turn 7 is going to get a little bit quick as well. Also 12, 13, very, very quick sort of right-hand kinks. But in sort of IndyCar fashion, you're probably going to be having the car somewhat trimmed down in race trim, because with such short bursts down the straightaways, you're not gonna feel the slipstream for a very long time. So you're probably gonna want to trim the car out as best you can to probably help yourself in race conditions not lose positions. That said, the cars will likely be performing a little bit better and potentially be a little bit quicker with an absolute ton of aero put on the car. So it's gonna be interesting to see what drivers decide to go with in order to keep these things moving forward and keep themselves moving forward.
I think the way forward today for most of these drivers has been the high downforce strategy. Can't really see anyone going for the low downforce here. I think it would be just a little bit too sketchy through the tight sections, just a little bit too dangerous even for everyone around them and for the drivers' own races. And I think everyone today, they know that some people might struggle, and that for drivers like Jos van der Ven, it's going to be a really important day for points if they can pull off a good finish. So for a lot of these drivers today, getting to the end is going to be the first aim, because they know that going forward is going to be a massive help to their championship, as it looks as though the tail end of the top 10 is starting to get a little bit of traffic. Franz Josef Stumm is getting involved with the likes of Timo Sniemi, Hans Picknen, Daniel Schulmeister. That's at the very end of the top 10 they are. So obviously already a lap down for the 34, clearly hitting trouble early on, as he has.
Yeah, I believe we saw him get in the wall, and you see some damage to the rear wing. We've had that car on the cameras a couple times, so not going exactly what they would like, but there's a big wiggle there from Daniel Schulmeister as he works through the last couple right-hand corners. I believe that was turn 12. He clipped that curb, which we talked about that you don't really want to get up all over and onto, and that kicked the back end out just a little bit. Looks like Lucas Laville has lost the back, by the way, of Joni Kainen and Matt Cook just a little bit. So the fight for second and third still very close. After Matt, we saw him on the opening couple laps relinquish that second position. He's since not let that 77 run away.
The two split by just 0.4 of a second, and it does look as though at the moment MacBook very comfortable sat behind Untitled and not really putting too much pressure onto the number 77 machine. And I think that's a sensible decision from Matt. He knows he has pace. He was very quick in practice, very quick in qualifying as well. The only driver who's really been able to pimp him today is that driver of Josh Chin, who's 5 seconds up the road from these guys as it stands very early on in this race. And Matt Cook maybe also deciding that sitting behind Untitled, a good way to save fuel, and going for a bit more of a pit stop strategy today as opposed to a all-out pace strategy on the racetrack.
I'm not sure how much of a difference that's really going to make though here with the slipstream though, Jack, because we even kind of talked about it. You don't really have any super long straightaways here. I mean, you have the run from turn 6 to 7, which is decently long. You also have the run from turn 2 to turn 3. So you're not going to be feeling the full effect of the slipstream. I don't know how much of a fuel you're going to be able to save sitting in the draft. I'm sure you'll get a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be quite as much as we've seen on some of the big GP-style tracks that we've had thus far this season, like, say, Interlagos that we had in the opening round. That would have been a fantastic track to do that sort of thing. But here, I think it's if any fuel saving is going to be happening, say 98 to 99% of it's going to just have to be how you use your right foot.
And looking at that fuel strategy today, it's going to be about 31 laps on a tank of fuel. Some fuel savers may go for 32, so it is possible to go 1 lap longer. And of course, 2 stops will be needed today. 72-lap race. You're not going to get to the end. You're going to be about 10 laps short going on the 31-lap strategy. It'll be about 8 laps if you go for 2 32-lap stints. So a splash and dash will be needed for that second stop, Randy. Now it'll be interesting to know whether drivers will decide to take tyres in that second stop, because it's not that far to the end once those guys decide that pit lane is time to be, or it's time to visit pit lane at that point later on in the race. Just 8 laps, you might see some guys just go for the fuel, go for that shorter pit stop. Not sure you're going to gain that much time. We have had an incident out on track between the 001 and the 08 by the looks of things. That is coming through turns 12 and 13. Looks as though it's quite a big incident as well. Wonder if it was just Henry Bennett. I think he lost it on his own. I'm pretty sure he did.
Yep, we're getting a look at that incident right now from the 001 car. You see him go through turn 11. Now through turn 12, is he clean? No, he gets a big wiggle, and you're right, he just loses it all by himself. Somehow is able to keep it off the wall, and that's a very tight part of the racetrack to have to spin. And actually behind, Daniel Schoolmeister's slight incident as well. I'm not sure if that was him just checking up for the spin or what that was, but we'll take a peek to see if anything happened to that 08 machine to see what exactly happened, or if they both just had their own incidents.
It looked as though, from my view, the 08 just lost the rear end. But I think, as you say, that could be him checking up in response to seeing Henry Bennett parked across the road. But Bennett is back out and running.
He clipped the curb, and actually Daniel Schoolmeister had a big run-in with the wall. We'll get another look at this from the TV cameras, but before that, going through turn 12, he just took a big bite out of the curb, and that just shot him into the outside wall.
Okay, that I did not see when I was reviewing the replay. We've had another car stopped out on track. That's Adair. Saunders. Looks as though he's planted in a wall at turn 6. He's taken the toe back to the pit lane, so another driver hitting issues early on in this race. Daniel Schoolmeister is back out and away. He's exiting pit lane now. Henry Bennett is out and away as well. He's back down in, he's up in down in 9th position. He's down 2 spaces on where he started, Randy. I think he was running a little bit higher than that just before his incident then, but he's back out and running still within the top 10, so still could salvage a good finish here today.
Yeah, he could, as we're getting a look at the incident from Adair Saunders. We already saw sort of the first look of it, and this is more of just a classic Detroit-style accident as he works through turn 5, just kicked that back end out and just slapped that left rear right on the outside wall. So the opening sort of bulk of the bulk of the opening 10 laps, Jack, everything was relatively clean and quiet. Here now we sort of got 10 laps under us, and we're starting to see some mistakes form up from people as these tires start to warm just a little bit. We haven't really talked about the track conditions whatsoever here today, and it's actually pretty warm out there. 117 degrees Fahrenheit, 47 degrees Celsius, and clear skies once again. I don't know what it is with the straws that these admins for the Classic IndyCar Series have been drawing, but every single week we're getting these hot tracks with clear skies, which are making things mighty difficult for everyone.
Yeah, 47-degree track temperature in Celsius. That's one of the highest track temperatures that you will see on iRacing. One of the highest that we've seen all year long as well with the classic Indycar series. And as Randy said, it's a nice clear day, but it's also quite windy as well. 26-kilometer-an-hour winds blowing to the northwest. So some of these cars, actually, the wind could be affecting the aero as well, because of course that does happen in these cars. The high downforce machines, they do get affected by the wind heading down the straights and through the corners. The battle for second position, I've been keeping my eye on it over the last couple of laps. Lucas Seville slowly reeling these guys back in here, Randy. Gap between himself and Matt Cook back down to 0.8 of a second. Looking as though he could get involved in this one in the coming laps.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that one. So we've already seen Lucas have some good speed and start reeling this this small group in before, and then had some sort of an incident, had to fall back. As Matt Cook actually gets a big run on Joni Kajanen in towards turn one. Isn't going to be able to look up the inside, though. Very difficult to make passes at that end of the racetrack, so not surprised to see Matt decide that's not the hill he wants to fight and to potentially die on. But what about turn three? That's a good spot to pick up some positions, and it seems like the answer there is going to be no as well. So Matt Cook still looking keen on just sitting here in this third spot, even though he's got the charging Vortex driver hounding down his neck.
He has indeed. The battle behind as well, another Vortex driver, Jos van der Ven, Robert Grosser in fifth position. They're split by about 4-5 of a second as it stands. Jos van der Ven clearly hasn't dropped off the back. A really good performance today for that 167 machine. I think one that, even if anything happens, Randy, he'll still be pleased, because it shows that he's got pace in what is a very competitive field. Not close enough to challenge Robert Grosser this time as they head into the fountain section, but still there, still looking, and could be a challenger come late on in this race for a position in the top 5.
Yeah, that very flamboyantly colored number 167 car having a very good run already through this opening half of the opening stint. So he'll be more than pleased with himself, I think, to be running 6th. He's down one spot from where he started, but with the likes of, I think it's just no, I take that back, it's Lucas, the one who got around him. Lucas been having a very, very strong season. Can't be too upset with that one.
And we have lost another driver in the last couple of laps. Ladies and gentlemen, we've lost Andrew Aitken, the number 27 machine. He was running in 11th position
as well. Oh, he's 10 laps down.
Yeah, so Andrew Aitken has had issues. He's towed back to the pit lane. Josh Baird had an issue about 14 minutes ago, right at the start of this event. By the looks of things, one of the first drivers to decide that Detroit is not going to be his day. And it does mean that there are drivers running laps down. It does mean there are drivers who have thrown in the towel, and I think we're down to about 15 runners, Randy, left out on the circuit from the 23 who took the green flag.
Yeah, so we've lost a lot of cars through these opening 13 laps, but nothing really in terms of racing incidents. We had that one issue with Gerlicka and Tristan Hauser, but other than that, it's been a lot of self spins out there and a lot of just solo pushing through the corner a little bit too hard, maybe getting tight and finding yourself running into the outside wall or catching a little bit of bumps and spinning into the outside wall. Now what do you got?
We've got seeing multiple cars stopped, and there's drivers involved within the top 10. This is down at the start of the fountain section, turn number 7 at the end of the straight. There was a car in the wall on the right hand side, and he was sat on the racing line. I believe that was Tom Seeker making his debut in the Classic IndyCar Series today in the number 79 machine. And it just looks as though Hans Pitkanen had nowhere to go, Randy.
Oh, yeah, I'm not sure what in the world happened there. There was Henry Bennett getting involved there as well. Camera angle wasn't that great, so we'll take another peek at it. But Tom he sort of buzzes into the corner and never turns in, and he just sort of runs the car right up into the outside wall and just sort of slides along it until he comes to a stop, and then you'll see the cars behind. Just no way to ever avoid there. You see here heading towards the Corvette Bridge, he just gets into that wall and not able to get steered off of it and ends up having nowhere to go. We'll get another peek at it from onboard, this time with Hans Pitkanen. You'll see how much ground he starts reeling in on him. I think he had the pace over Tom Ziegler out in front of him, because that gap, especially coming through here, you see Tom a little bit wide at the apex here, so that's going to allow Hans to reel that gap in a little bit. And he's going to be thinking to himself, all right, I'm closing in, I'm going to push, I might have to, the ability towards the tail end of this stint to really push and fight with him, and suddenly that car's in the wall. And Hans, I think he may have had the opportunity to get by is a slightly slow reaction, but regardless. And oh no, Lucas LaVille, technical problems for the Vortex driver.
Yeah, I've just spotted that as well. I was seeing two drivers getting promoted up through the positions and saw the Frenchman dropping down. So Lucas LaVille hitting trouble after just around 15 laps of this motor race. And I think that's going to be day done for the Frenchman running it. He was running in 4th, but now a long way down the field. And technical issues, once again, I remember him having a couple last year, and they seem to have been a bit less rare this year, but all of a sudden, he's hitting more, and I think that's going to be upsetting for someone who was looking so promising all day long.
Yeah, he's not going to be happy with that, especially here. This is a disaster of a circuit to have that happen, especially just how short the laps are. This is some of the quickest laps we're going to see all season in the Classic IndyCar Series. 1 minute 15, 1 minute 16, 17 in that sort of bracket, as he has reconnected to the servers. So he's basically guaranteed to go down an entire lap here. There's a couple tracks with the longer lap distance. You might expect that you can keep and maintain that lead lap status if you have a good enough PC. If you got iRacing saved on a good old solid state hard drive, you could probably get back loaded into the server and back out and running on the lead lap. Here though, you're going to lose at least a lap and a half, if not 2. And of course, no wave rounds in this series, so you're going to have to maybe be lucky and catch a caution to get back on the lead lap for Lucas LaVille. But we've not really seen any incident big enough to warrant a yellow, Jack. And we've sort of lost enough cars, and the cars are spread out enough at this point. I'm not sure it's entirely likely that we're going to see a big track blocking incident that'll warrant a yellow.
No, I think if we were going to see a yellow, we would have seen it in the opening 10 laps, and that hasn't happened today. So everyone's settled down, and I think we're going to be running green to the end. The lowest that Lucas will drop is the place that he's currently in 15th position, as Tom Ziegler decides that he's going to bring it down onto the pit lane. I did see the 79 had a bit of a reduction in bodywork by the looks of things after that contact down at turn number 7. And I believe that's going to be another driver out of this race. So LaVille back out, Henry Bennett as well. That incident down at the fountain, Randy, has taken him out of the race. So the reigning Classic IndyCar Series champion is out at Detroit. And all of a sudden, we're getting close to losing nearly half of the field in the opening 15 laps, as Joshua Chin once again is setting fastest lap times.
Yep, he's just set that new fastest lap of the race. Not much quicker than his original one, so it's not that impressive just yet, Josh. You're going to have to go a little bit quicker than that to really impress us. But no, he's really picked up the pace here. It was an 8.54 the previous quickest lap, and now he goes to an 8.11, so it takes about half a tenth out of it. And in some ways, you almost need to start worrying a little bit, because we've seen this 93 car do it a couple times this season. Get out, get a big lead, keep pushing, put down, start routinely setting fastest lap of the race, fastest lap of the race, fastest lap of the race. Then, oh no, it's Joshua Chin in the wall. So he needs to, this is one he needs to really, I think, get done and put behind him and lock up as a race win, I think, just as difficult as this circuit is. And it's the sort of track that Josh can typically dominate. If he can go through here without having a major incident, be it a spin or just, the sort of incidents we've seen thus far with throwing himself into the outside wall, I think that will sort of boost the confidence for the Team Chimera driver.
And as Josh Chin completes his 17th lap, the motor race,
and he goes
once
faster.
again goes faster again by a tenth of a second. And as you said, Randy, he is pushing. And I agree, he needs to be careful. He's built a reputation this year, I think we can say, of having the odd unfortunate incident every now and then, which has thrown away race wins for him, not just on one occasion. And he can't be having that here today. Of course, last year at Belle, it was Adam Shipstone who took himself down onto victory lane after driving an absolutely brilliant race all race long. And he actually did get the win because Andreas Werner, who was dominating out at the front of the field, much like what we're seeing today with Joshua Chin, he hit issues and he ended up falling down the field. And Josh Chin's got to be careful, because he could very easily give this one away to Yoni Kardon or Matt Cook if he's not careful. And it's not like circuits that we've been at so far this year where he can just spin the car around and get back going again. If you go off here, you're in a wall and it will bite.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that one. I mean, we've seen a couple people get lucky with a bit of a half spin, and be able to sort of recover, as we're going to take a peek at the championship points. And the reason the points are sort of dialed out is because Joshua's had that trouble. He finds himself 64 points back from points leader Matt Cook in the second spot. Lucas LaVille not far off in about 28 points back in third. Then Joni Kaisinen is 60 points back off of Josh, and a full 116 points off of Matt Cook. But the entire reason there's that big gap between first and second is that Josh has had those troubles out there as he continues to push. Does an 8.83 that last time, so not a full quickest lap of the race there on his last trip around the racetrack, but still very, very respectable times being put down by that 93. And it seems like we've had about two sort of groups really open up here, Jack. We have, of course, that fight for second and third we've been checking in on between Kaitanen and Matt Cook. They continue to circulate. Matt has sort of lost a little bit of ground there. Gioni able to open up a slight gap. And then for about fourth, fifth, sixth on the racetrack, Robert Grosser and Jos Vandeven are nose to tail. But you have Timo Yemi only about a second and a half, 2 seconds down the racetrack. Still very much a part of this fight for these guys, and close enough to, let's say, be relevant and in the back of their minds.
And it could be interesting, especially as we head towards the end of this first fuel run into the first round of pit stops, as to who's been saving fuel. Maybe get a 10th here, a 10th there. You never know. It could go a long way, especially in a race like this. If you can get a pass down on pit lane, it's one that you don't have to do out on the racing circuit and risk putting your car into a wall. For the likes of Matt Cook, for the likes of Jos Vandeven, that could be important here today, Randy. This fuel strategy. I know we said earlier on that it is quite hard to save fuel around here, and I do agree with that, but a 10th here, a 10th there, it does mean everything, especially in a circuit like this.
Yeah, and I think I may have heard Hans Pitkanen have a bit of an issue. It sounded like it based on the engine notes, so just taking a quick peek, and indeed we did. He sort of locked up the tires going into the right-hander at turn 11 before swinging down the final bit of the back straightaway, but overall a pretty minor incident. But you're right, this is a potential situation that you might want to save some gas in, but it's of course the sort of race I don't think you want to... Oh, what do you got?
Hans Pitkanen, we were just talking about him, Randy, as he came out of turn number 4 by the looks of things.
Hello,
a little bit
Jet.
too wide. And while there was a concrete wall sat there waiting for him, so another driver that looks as though we may have lost from this race with terminal damage is that number 8 machine.
Well, let's see what happens. We're taking a peek on the replay right now. You see him through turn 2, and he looks okay. Maybe rewound the cameras back a little bit far, but we know that he was struggling with that car a little bit just based on what we saw. There is some damage on it. We've seen that 8 car in the wall a couple of times. So let's see where does the trouble end up befalling him on this replay. Oh, and there it is. Yeah, he just too quick through that sort of right-hander in the infield section of the race course after turn 3, and he just sort of, it's a classic sort of street circuit mistake that you make. Get one of those fast corners and just go a little bit too fast through it and just scrape that left front or right front tire right up against the wall and snap that suspension. A very, very easy mistake to make around here.
And it's a mistake that Hans Pitkanen did not want to make, but it's one that he has indeed made. Dropped down to 13th position in the standings. And he is going to be the first of our, what looks like our retirements. 12 cars are left out running on the racing surface now, Randy. So very quickly, we're losing quite a lot of the drivers, and we are now at a point where we've lost half the field.
Yeah, we've lost a huge amount of the cars we have out there and running. And even then, of the cars that are still out there running, a lot of them are damaged and are well down the order. I mean, the top 8, in the opening 21 laps, the top 8 are separated by 1 minute and 10 seconds. And then you have Andrew Wood, who's a lap down. Daniel Schoolmeister in 10th. We've seen that 08 car end up facing the wrong way once or twice already today. He's 1 lap down. Johnny Garrett is 1 lap down. Franz Josef Strum, Hans Pitkanen, who we've just seen, pulled it off the racetrack, is still in 13th. Out there and running, Henry Bennett is in the 14th spot. So top 12 cars are still out there and running, and they're still out there logging laps. But still, things are getting mighty, mighty tight as Matt Cook is beginning to push. He sets down fastest lap of the race.
Matt Cook has indeed been setting down the push and getting that fastest lap of the race off of Josh Chin. Not only has he done that, he's promoted himself into 2nd position as himself and Joni Kainen exited that fountain section of the racetrack. Joni Kainen got loose at the rear end by the looks of things, Randy. Had to slam on the brakes to avoid the wall. Matt Cook said thank you very much, and he's now got 3 seconds to the good.
Yep, we'll rewind the cameras back a little bit further to see what exactly befell this number 77 car. We're right on board with Yoni. As you see, that little bit of side pod damage we were talking about earlier. Don't think that would have affected him here, but through this double left, he's able to hold on to it. And then does he just clip the curb? No, actually, he doesn't. It's pretty much just on throttle application. There's a slight bump on the exit of that corner, and he just sort of picked the rear tires up off the ground nearly. The rear tires just got light, so that spun him up, and he's able to hold on to that car and keep it out of the wall. But second place ends up going to Matt Cook. Yoni Kaijinen back down to P number 3, still up 1 from where he started, and now he's quickly fallen 3 seconds off of Matt Cook as Matt has continued just to push as he set fastest lap of the race again at a 16.595.
And that 16.595 means that he's now almost 2/10 quicker than Josh Chin. And Josh Chin's fastest lap, he was also a second quicker than Josh last time around. So Josh may be deciding that he's going to take the foot off the gas a little bit. Matt Cook has decided that now is the time to put the foot down and try and chase down Mr. Chin in the Team Chimera number 93 machine and try and maybe get back that race lead. Still another 50 laps to go in this motor race, Randy. Long way to go, but it could be done.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's still plenty of time for Matt to reel this gap down and in, and if it very well may have been the strategy here. Take the first opening 3/4 of a stint, 20 lap or so, whatever number you want to pick. Get out there, get in a rhythm, just start running nice, quiet, calm laps, and then when you eventually get to the point that you can, start opening it up and then work your way back out there towards the front of the field and start hounding Josh Chin. Yeah, it's going to open up a pretty big margin for Josh, and you're going to have to push, but it's going to get you into a rhythm, and it's going to get you into a nice, calm state to be able to work with.
There's I'm just looking at Timo Isinyemi, currently standing 6th. He's about 3 seconds back from the battle for 4th position out on the racing circuit. That's between Robert Grosser and Jos van der Ven. As it stands, those two split by about 0.8 of a second at the moment. Timo Isinyemi setting pretty good lap times as well, Randy. Another driver who could try and close up the gap, but so far today having a pretty clean race. One of the only cars left out on circuit without any damage on it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't see much damage on that car at all. I mean, it's basically the top 6 that I think are the ones with the clean race cars. So, but you are right. Timo's been setting down good laps, been sort of in the same window as Jos van der Ven. So overall, been a good run for the Vortex car at the moment. But it's still Jos van der Ven, who I'd say is really the standout driver in terms of punching above his weight and doing really putting in a good performance for himself. You know, we usually don't see that 167 this far up the field, and for him to be running solidly in the top 5 at this point in the race with as many people have struggled, it's a very good run coming out from the 167 car. You see a little bit of lap traffic for Timo.
Yeah, that was Andrew Wood in the number 32 machine down in 9th position. He's had a bit of an issue as he headed himself into the fountain that time. Didn't quite catch what had happened, but he looks as though he's got away unscathed, and he's away without damage. So back up and running is Andrew Wood down in 9th position, still a lap down. First car a lap down on your leader, Josh Chin. Just 8 cars now remaining, or the top 8 remaining on the lead lap as it stands. So everyone looking as though, as we said, getting into a rhythm. And well, as we approach the first round of pit stops, we're going to catch up with a driver who was looking very strong during the opening portion of today's race, and that is, of course, Mr. Lucas Laville. Lucas, first of all, commiserations on what has to be a pretty annoying way to end your race today.
Annoying to say the least. Back-to-back races that way, by the way. So that's pretty good. That's a pretty good streak to be on after winning 3 races in a row in 17. I have to say that's pretty good.
And obviously, Belle, we've said as it from the commentary point of view, it is a very challenging circuit. What are the challenges that you guys face out on the circuit as a driver while going around this very tight and twisty street circuit?
For sure, today is a pretty difficult day. First of all, many of us have Le Mans in the legs and the hands already, so that's one challenge in itself. The track is very difficult, probably the hardest race of the year apart from Indy, and the temps are super high right now, even though they are decreasing as we speak, which makes this a very difficult race to just drive around and deal with traffic. And as we can see, the attrition level is quite high already, as we have only 12 drivers remaining in this race.
And we were talking at the start of the race about the possibility of potentially having a safety car today, but not having one in the end. No major blockages. Did you see anything out on circuit where people were struggling through some of these corners to make the apex of the corners, or maybe even having issues with the walls?
Definitely 5 and 6. This left-right complex is pretty difficult with the bumps and the low grip related to the track temp, plus the fountain complex, obviously, where most of the spins happen. But so far, I have to say, from the runners left, so good. Obviously, looks like we had a big incident in the first lap where 4 cars were involved, and I didn't notice anything apart from Matt spinning, but saving it. Apart from that, so far, so good.
Well, obviously looking forward today, and of course last time out in Indianapolis, not going to be days that you're going to be walking away with a smile on your face. I feel the rest of the season now is just about scoring as many points as possible. You're looking very, very competitive in the standings, someone who could challenge for probably not that championship lead, but definitely for that top 3.
It's over for me for the lead, that's for sure. I DNF'd the 2 races I had to finish strongly, which were Indy and here is my best track, so that's pretty much the end of my season. Now we're trying to rely for a good top 3 in the standings would be good, that's for sure. Yeah.
Well, Lucas, before we release you to go back and enjoy the remaining 45 laps of this race, who would you like to give a shout out to today?
Big shout out to you guys for broadcasting this race. I don't know if you worked on Le Mans as I was driving myself, but if you were, big shout out to you for that long of a weekend. Big shout out as well to my teammates at Vortex for helping me prepare these 2 races back to back, and their support were pretty massive.
Well, that's Lucasville, was running up in the top 5 today, had a brilliant start, getting a couple of positions in that opening stage of the race, but technical issues has robbed him of a good finish today, and quite possibly the championship win in 2019, Randy. And this is what is important, is something that Josh Chin has realised as well. If you have issues out on circuit, you are very quickly going to take yourself out of contention for the championship.
Yeah, that is definitely the case. But on the topic of Josh, I'm probably going to trigger Jamie Wilson just a little bit. I've gotten a little bit of inside info, and fuel saving is the name of the game right now for the 93 car. They have the mileage at the moment. If Josh can hit his number of 2.2 liters every single lap of doing this on one stop. Compare that, Henry Bennett was out there at not saving whatsoever, doing 2.6 liters per stop. The 93 car, to make this work, is expecting to run out of fuel on the pit lane. So they're thinking they can go one stop. I'm not too worried about revealing this at this point, because so many laps has gone by that no one should be able to cover. But a crazy strategy coming out from the 93 car to maybe make this work. So maybe fuel strategy, very, very much relevant. And that's impressive that Josh is saving fuel, considering the lap times he's putting down is still well within the likes of Matt Cook, who's been pushing the hardest of most of your race leaders at this point.
Well, you're saying that he's running, what, 2.2 litres of fuel a lap?
Yeah.
And he's still lapping faster than almost everyone out on the circuit. That is incredible.
Who's using
driving.
2.6 per lap.
Oh, 2.6 lap. Right, okay.
No. He's doing it. He needs to do 2.2. If you go out there and push, you do 2.6. So he's cut off his fuel usage by 25%.
And that's going to be what you need. Of course, it's only, 5-6 laps either side of a fuel stint. Yeah, that you need to save to be able to do this on a one-stop race. And I think he, of course, will be the only driver going for it. Looking at the lap times, there's no one else going for this slightly more adventurous strategy, and for Josh Chin, this really does have to play off for him to be able to win this race. But we know Josh Chin is the fuel-saving master, Randy. He's proven it many times before, and he's proven it again today.
Yeah, you're right. So it's going to be a crazy way to see how this ends up panning out. And I will say it's going to be disaster if they end up getting these numbers off. I mean, there's been a couple times at Chimera we've had Josh put in some amazing fuel-saving performances. We had it in the SCO one-off Suzuka race. I believe that was a 10-hour race. We were able to win that because Josh was able to run 2 laps further on fuel basically than anyone else could. We've seen Josh put in this sort of performance before. This is the sort of thing Josh can typically do well. He just has to quote Jamie Wilson, he has to maintain these numbers and not die.
Maintaining the numbers for Josh Chin is going to be the easy part. Not dying, I feel like, is going to be the hard part for Mr. Chin. as he continues to lead this race. 6.7 seconds to the good. Last time around, he ran a 16.7, and Matt Cook ran a 16.6. So the two still very equal on lap times, and the gap between them is not coming down. I wonder whether Matt Cook's had a little bit of an issue over the last lap or so, Randy, because he has lost a lot of time in the opening sector of this lap.
Yeah, you're right. So things not going exactly great. So not the ideal situation here, especially in this opening stint, which actually is getting ready to come to an end. So we are, I think we're expecting about 31, 32 laps for most cars going through this this primary stint. So we should be seeing people on pit road any moment now, as Matt Cook is going to be the first one to actually hit pit road, and Logykal is going to follow suit. Josh Chin still out there on the racetrack.
So Matt Cook, Logykal deciding that 30 laps is as far as they're going to go on this opening stint of the race. Will be a sensible decision with the tyres. Josh Chin has got to get to lap number 36 to make this strategy work. And if he does, he's then got to finish the race on the same length strategy. Now that's easier said than done, and of course they will have used that little bit of fuel on the pace lap, Randy. So he's going to be a little bit more to the good with the fuel on the second run.
Jos van de Ven has set fastest lap of the race.
He has, and that isn't my timing screens updating because everyone is in the pits. That is Jos van de Ven doing a 1 minute 16.2. That's 3/10 faster than anyone out on the racing circuit, and he's doing that on worn tyres and low fuel.
Well, we know that in this classic Indycar, this old Dallara IR05, that you tend to get quicker as the fuel burns off. The tires are, are very, very robust. You don't really get much tire fade, so it's not surprising to see the quickest lap come in at this phase of the race. I will just say I'm just surprised to see it come from the 167. So maybe the likes of Grosser and Logykal, and they're going to have some company here, and not a long, potentially period of time with the sort of pace that 167 car is carrying.
And that could be interesting as well for Robert Grosser. Grosser needs to watch his mirrors because the Dutchman could be getting close as Grosser decides that pit lane is where he wants to be. Jos van de Ven is going to go for a 32nd lap, so stretching the fuel mileage on this first run. Looks as though Timo Isinniemi is doing the same. So Isinniemi in the 43 also deciding that 32 laps is going to be the length of his first stint. And Joshua Chen, obviously, we know is going for this alternate strategy of a one-stop race. We're still going to wait about 5-10 minutes to find out whether he will be able to do it or not, and then actually wait for the end of the race to find out whether he's even got to do a splash and dash. Of course, the splash and dash that he would need, Randy, is only going to be a second or so, but it's going to be the 20 seconds that he's going to spend at pit limiter speed, losing a lot of time to those behind him.
And of course, the risk with this strategy, like we said, we're half expecting him to almost run out of fuel and coast down the pit lane for a short distance. Pit lane is relatively flat, maybe a slight uphill pitch, but not very much. Of course, a couple bumps as well. So he should be all right in that respect, but it's still going to be a bit nerve-wracking. And wouldn't that be a terrible way for Josh to have a race slip away from him, to be working this fuel strategy, run out of fuel in the lane, and just come to a stop a little bit short before his box? And actually, that puts a lot of pressure on Josh, because if you're expecting that you're going to run out of fuel on pit lane, you can afford no mistakes getting into your pit box. If you slide your box just a little bit too far, you're going to be running out of fuel, and you, of course, can't readjust the car. And, of course, we don't have the ability for pit crew members to push the car into the box into the sim. You'll essentially have to take the tow, which, while it won't be a long one, it's going to be an extra 5 to 10 seconds on your pit stop, and that's basically going to be a race killer. So there's a lot of risk with what Josh is doing right now, not just on can he make the fuel mileage, but can he get and execute it, get everything done and dusted through the pit stop as well, if what they're expecting to happen will happen.
As Jos van de Ven and Timo Isinniemi have both made their first pit stop, so everyone now has made their first pit stop other than your race leader Joshua Chin, as Carsten Brodvie has had an issue down at turn number 3. Back going again. Looks like that was a self-spin. It was indeed. Well, actually, no, he just missed the corner. Completely missed turn 3 there, Randy. An interesting incident for the number 35, and one that Carsten probably wasn't planning.
Yeah, it's sort of the classic mistake you'll see at street courses, isn't it? Is you'll lock up going into the corner and end up sort of in the runoff there. Seen that happen more than once, and at all the street circuits that... oh, Jos van de Ven's been in the wall. He's got damage on his left wing. I'm not sure how long he's been on pit road, but we know that he was sort of near the pit window. He's been in the pit stops for about 40 seconds now. So problem for Jos van de Ven after we were just talking about him having set quickest laps of the race. He had already come out of pit road, I think, when this incident happened. Oh, and he got it exiting pit road. Immediately he came off the pits, hit the bump at turn 2, and that just spat him into the inside wall.
And Jos van de Ven had a perfect opportunity to walk away today with a very good points haul going forward in the rest of the season. And he's done what the pace car driver did last year at turn number 2. Hit that bump. We've got another car stop. Andrew Wood is stopped in the middle of the track out of the exit at turn 5. He's going to get going again, but he has got damaged up front left there, Randy. So another driver clearly becoming a victim to the bumps here at Detroit. Jos van de Ven and Andrew Wood within the space of about 2 laps.
Yeah, we'll see what exactly befell Andrew Wood here. See what happened to this 32 car, and you're right, he just basically caught one of those bumps a little bit wrong and spat him out into the inside wall. So, as we circulate, Andrew Wood keeps it out there on the racetrack, currently ahead of Joni Kajanen. Josh is about 1 lap short of where he needs to be based on where we are at the moment. Currently working lap 35 of 72 at nearly half distance here. So in just a couple of moments, we'll be getting our answer of if they're confident that he can do this. He's going to have to do at least 1 more trip around the racetrack, or if he'll be doing a splash and dash.
And if he pits this time around, it's going to be a splash and dash. If he pits next time, he is still going to be on that one-stop strategy. Last time around, he did 1 minute 16.4. So clearly still finding pace in a car that's very much being driven in fuel-saving mode as he heads himself through the double right-hander of 12 and 13. This is now going to be the moment of truth. Is Josh Chin going to come down onto the pit lane? He is not. So Josh Chin is on for a one-stop strategy here at Detroit, a strategy which no one thought could be done, but Josh Chin proving him wrong.
And now if you can, you need to start sort of, you almost need to gamble a little bit, I think. If you can do an extra lap, I think you try to do it. It's going to be a tough ask here, and I doubt that they're going to have it in the fuel tank to be able to go an extra trip around the racetrack. But if it's something they can do, I'm always a big proponent of if you can go an extra lap in the first half on a fuel save strategy. It's always worth it as he gets a big wiggle there through turn 4.
That was a very large, I wouldn't say that was a wiggle, I'd say that was a monumental wiggle for Josh Chin. Losing that rear end, and he saved it. Very lucky for the Team Chimera driver as he heads himself into the fountain section for the 36th time. He's surely got to come down onto pit lane now because that car must be running on fumes. It's going to be interesting to hear that engine note, Randy, as he does head down onto pit lane as to whether he will run out of fuel before his pit box, because it's going to be tight. And I'm almost certain as he almost loses
Josh,
it
please.
again. And the pit lane does not, yes it does, it beckons for Josh Chin, so Chin on pit lane.
So Josh is on pit road. We're going to listen to the car. Car is still running as he coasts down pit road. It is possible he may have saved a little bit extra to make sure they had some fuel in the tank as they work down here. As still running. So it doesn't look like they're going to have any issues with that, as he will get to his box and the car will get jacked up. So the car will not stall out as he rolls down pit road, but it's going to be a long stop, of course, for Josh, because it's going to be filling from pretty much an empty tank right up to the top at 11.3, the full stop there with a 32.1 trip down through the pit road. Where is Matt Cook? Matt Cook is still behind, currently going through turn number 2.
So Josh Chin has kept the lead of the motor race, and he's 7 seconds to the good over Matt Cook. So actually, he's gained time while going for the one-stop strategy, but he's got to keep hitting those fuel numbers. And now for Josh Chin, it's not a race about who's around him, it's a race of fuel numbers, Randy, because he can't worry about who's around him, because if he does, he's going to start pushing. He won't hit the fuel numbers, so he'll have to make a splash and dash. If he doesn't pit again, he's going to be about 25 seconds faster than everyone else out on the circuit.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is that he's managed this strategy, though, and he still has a big lead over the 6 at Matt Cook. So it's sort of the great situation, I think, for Josh Chin right now, because going that extra couple laps means that if he gets the fuel number wrong, they can afford to come down and take a splash and dash, because as you said, everyone else is going to need about, what, a 10-lap fill based on when they came down pit road. We saw Matt Cook pit on lap number 30. That means at the absolute latest, he could, we'll see him on pit road at lap 66. That's if he does 36 laps, which is what Josh has just done. So we're going to be seeing him coming down and taking about a 10-lap fill on fuel at the absolute limit. Josh, if he wanted to, he could open it up if he actually wanted to and try to open a gap and even just accept the splash and dash. So no matter what, actually, we weren't expecting this sort of fuel saving. It was something we, yeah, you might see someone save a little bit of fuel, push an extra lap, an extra 2, but we weren't expecting this amount coming out from people, and this is really allowed Josh to put him in control of this race, not only on pure pace, but on strategy as well, both if he misses his numbers or if he hits his number and just doesn't have to stop for the rest of the race.
And this is now where it gets interesting with 34 laps remaining in the race. We have hit the halfway mark of this motor race, and it's about time we take you through your standings as they run. 12 cars, 11 cars now are left out on this racing surface. As we've just been talking about, Joshua Chin, Matt Cook, they are 1 and 2. Joni Kynan currently still sitting in 3rd. Robert Grosser, Timo Yami, the 2 Logical Vortex teammates, are going to be running 4th and 5th. They are the only drivers now left on the lead lap of this race. Carsten Brodby is 6th, Marshall Stanley 7th, Johnny Garrett 8th, Andrew Wood 9th, Daniel Schulmeister is going to round out the top 10. Franz-Josef Stumm is going to be the last driver running 2 laps down in that number 34 machine after his teammate Jos van der Ven hit trouble through turn number 2 on the exit of pit lane. And as we hit this halfway mark, it's about time we take you on board with one of these drivers. This is RaceSpotTV fan immersion, so enjoy a lap on board of Belle Isle with Matt Cook. just tuning in, ladies and gentlemen, you are watching the iconic graphics Grand Prix of Detroit. We've just passed the halfway mark, and you've just spent some time running on board with Matt Cook in second position. A couple of moments in that time where he was looking as though he might lose the rear end, end himself up in a concrete wall, but it wasn't to be. And over the last few laps as well, he's been chasing down the leader of Josh Chin. The gap now down to 4.5 seconds. So as we head into the remaining 30 laps of this motor race, it's all starting to get very close at the front of the field. Josh Chin, of course, running that alternate fuel strategy, trying to go for a one-stop, and trying to do what no driver has done before. Matt Cook, though, he's on the two-stop strategy, so he's on pace. Josh Chin's on fuel, and if Josh Chin can pull this off, it will be his second win of the 2019 Classic Indycar Series, and a race which he has been dominant so far today. He's set pole by 0.6 of a second to the good over Matt Cook, and all day long he's been up at the front of the field, led every single lap of the race, other than during the pit stop stages. And as he heads across the line to start lap number 43, the lead gap will sit at around 4.7 seconds. Jack Stiles and Randy Chenworth up in the commentary box for the remaining 30 laps of this race today, live on the iRacing Esports Network. We've got just 10 drivers left in the race now, because another driver has been eaten up by the walls, and that's Carson Brobby in the 35. He's been stationary for about 2.5 minutes now, so we're down to 10 remaining drivers in this motor race. And Randy, attrition is one thing at Detroit, but this is far beyond what I thought we were going to see today.
It's sort of in the window, I think, of what I expected. We traditionally see this. We have the Long Beach Tech Track, and there was a time when that came out that pretty much every IndyCar series was using it, and we typically saw a lot of attrition at that place as well. So it's on the higher end, but I still think we're kind of well within the normal-ish window of what we typically see in regards to the attrition at these sorts of racetracks.
And of course, the attrition has been important. We've almost lost some of the front runners as well. We saw Matt Cook as you're running on board, as I said, during that fan immersion time. It was coming through the fountain section. I think I saw that he really did lose the rear end and almost ended up sideways through that section of the course. It did lose him a little bit of time, but it hasn't damaged him too much. Another 4/10 taken out of Josh Chin on that lap. The gap's down to 4.1 seconds. So Josh Chin now is going to have to stop watching those mirrors, Randy, making sure that Matt Cook doesn't close down too much. And if he does, I think for Josh Chin, he's just going to let him through, because he's obviously got a different strategy.
Yeah, you're definitely right about that, and I think it's likely Matt's probably heard, considering we spilled the beans on the broadcast, that Josh is going on the fuel safe. So probably pushing just that extra little bit harder at the moment. Is Matt trying to really hound him and bring him in? Let's take a look at the lap gaps, actually, and see what the comparisons have been like between your top two. And as you can see, Matt has been averaging quicker laps every trip by. 2/10 quicker on lap 41, 2.5 tenths quicker lap 42, nearly 4.5 tenths quicker lap number 43 as they currently work lap 44. So Matt is doing everything he can to bring that gap down and in as best as he possibly can, but it's still going to be an uphill battle for him, because he, of course, has to do about a full-ish pit stop. It's not quite a full tank of fuel, and whether or not you take tires, but he's going to have a much longer stop than Josh is going to have to deal with, and he's going to have to somehow undo a 3-second margin. Plus, of course, if Josh doesn't have to stop, the 30-second trip through the lane. So it's a big ask here for this 6 car, and I don't know if it's going to be possible to bring it back in.
And that was another half a second on the last strip around the racetrack that Matt Cook was able to take out of Josh Chin. So the gap for the lead as they head across the line was 3.8 seconds. As they head themselves into turns number 4, 5, and 6, the gap is 3.4 seconds. It's come down even more. Josh Chin may have some traffic to deal with over the next couple of laps as well. So I can see the 08, the 34, and the 32 just a little bit further up the racetrack. But of course, Matt Cook will also have to deal with that at some point as well. We're looking about halfway into this second fuel run for Matt Cook. He's at 15 laps at the end of this one. Josh Chin's going to be 9. 27 laps remaining at the end of this lap as well, Randy. So we know it's possible for Josh Chin, and we know that if he can pull it off, he's got the win in the bag, because there's no way that Matt Cook can pull 30 seconds out of the front of the field. But it's then a question of what happens to the likes of Untitled and Team Yami. I think that's going to be an interesting battle behind. They have spread out just a little bit, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, but they're all covered by about 15 seconds, so anything happens to either of them it could be a disaster.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. Third, fourth, and fifth has really spread itself out, spread itself thin. There were some close fights up there at one point, but this is exactly what Matt Cook needs to do. He needs to hound Josh Chin, and he needs to pressure Josh Chin as best as he possibly can, because he needs to try and catch him, and he needs to try to force him into burning up fuel, because what he needs to try to open up is that Josh actually is forced to come down pit road. That's what he really needs to happen, because that's going to be the big way to cut off. So Matt doing what he's doing right now, sending some of his quickest laps of the race and bringing this gap down and in every single trip around the racetrack is what's going to potentially allow him to win this race. It's not necessarily going out and passing Josh right here before the next time he comes down pit road. It's just getting to within about a second of him and potentially making Josh have to think about his rear view a little bit and not quite focus on his fuel consumption and hopefully push him over the mark.
Matt Cook's pushing. You can see the way he's driving. Some corners he's getting loose, some corners he's missing the apex altogether as he heads himself through 12 and 13. The run up to 14 at the start-finish line. We will find out what the gap's going to be over the line. I reckon it's going to be about 3.8 seconds. It is indeed. So Matt Cook has brought another 0.2 of a second out of Josh Chin that last time around. As they head themselves down into turn number 3 this time, Randy is getting even closer. Josh Chin now is going to get stuck behind some traffic. He's going to lose even more time now in this battle for the lead. But I genuinely do think Josh Chin is just going to let Matt Cook go when he does catch. It's not a case of if, it is now a case of when.
Josh is going to be doing his best Lewis Hamilton impression here in just a moment of blue flags, blue flags, blue flags. You see the first one is already going to hop out of the way, so that's going to be no advantage for Matt Cook whatsoever as far as that first lap car goes. And next one's going to be Franz Josef Sturm, who's going to be Franz Josef Stum, who is Josh is going to have to reel in here and potentially get around. But the first car playing nicely with both Josh and Matt. Actually, I take that back. Matt still not put Daniel Schoolmeister, who's that first car, a lap down yet. But nicely played with Josh, so no advantage to the 6th car just yet, which Matt is going to hate to see.
The first driver to make their second pit stop of the race, second scheduled pit stop of the race, is going to be Johnny Garrett. He looks as though that may have actually, not quite sure what's happened there. He's gone in and out, but he hasn't stopped in his box, Randy, so that can't have been a drive-through. I wonder what's happened to the 68.
He is 45 laps down, so it's not a usual strategy there from Johnny.
45 laps down?
That's, yeah. Oh, no, he's 1 lap down. Sorry, I was looking at the timing. Oh, he's got big damage, I'll tell you that much. He's out there rolling on the racetrack, and the left front end plate is completely destroyed.
That wasn't there when he was in the pit. That wasn't there when he was in the pit lane, and that's because he just crashed up at turn number 3. Looks as though he was doing his best impression as the Mazda DPI yesterday at the same section of the race track. Gone straight on into the tyre wall. And, well, I know who's going to win there, and it's going to be the tyre wall. So Johnny Garrett as well deciding that the day is done. That's now 9 cars we have out running on the racing surface with 25 laps remaining in this race.
I feel like we need a ticker, like, that has number of cars running, and then every time someone hits the wall, you just hear a ding, and it just counts down 1.
Yeah, it makes a nice audible noise as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. It's battle for the lead, down to 3.2 seconds now. Slowly catching is Matt Cook. And the traffic has been navigated for both of them. That's the 34 and the 08 that they've got themselves round. And as they head themselves down to turn number 3, the gap's going to be closing even more. And I think also it's going to be interesting. Matt Cook's only got, what, 10, 12 laps before he has to start thinking about visiting pit lane. There's a chance that he will catch up to Josh Chin, but he won't actually have either have time to overtake Josh Chin, or it's going to be too risky to the point where he's only a couple of laps away from his pit stop. There's no point risking the car trying to put in an overtake.
I still think it'd be a good and wise move for Matt, though, to sort of really put the pressure on Josh if he can get there. And yeah, he's not really in the window of being able to pick up the spot here, and he's not going to have much time to really be able to work on Josh if he's able to get there. But I still think he needs to do it regardless. Even if he's coming down in the next lap, he needs to just try to really put a bunch of pressure on him and try to get Josh to use up that fuel. So it's just unfortunate. Matt just seems like he doesn't quite have the speed here to be able to really catch him at the rate he needs to be. He does actually a very quick time that last trip through. Let's take another quick look at the lap comparisons. I mean, he's still reeling him in by about a couple tenths a lap. It's just it's not what he needs to be reeling him in at. You know, that he's still going to take about 15 laps for him to catch Josh at this pace, and he's already going to have come down pit road and be gone on away by the time that lap comes.
So for Matt Cook, maybe it is a case now, the realization that it might not possibly be there, but also for Josh Chin, does he have to start running slower lap times to hit those fuel numbers? He's been pretty good so far. We saw it throughout the first stint. He was able to hit the fuel numbers without having any worries on lap times, and he seems to be doing it again this time around. Still in the 1:16s, and there aren't many drivers out on the track who can hit those lap times other than Josh Chin, Matt Cook, and Joni Kainen, which is a third of the cars left on the track, let's be honest. And for Josh Chin, he's looking very comfortable.
Yeah, he definitely is. I don't think Josh is feeling any pressure at the moment from Matt Cook. He's going to know Matt's circulating a little bit quicker, and he's going to know that Matt's bringing him in a couple tenths every single lap. But Josh is experienced enough where he's not going to let that rattle him too much. That blue number 6 of Matt Cook was going to have to be at this point right off the rear wing of Josh in order for Josh to really start feeling any pressure and maybe not focus on on just the fuel consumption of the car. So it's not great, right? Or it is great for this 93 car at the moment, the white and green with the purple what's the word, trim bits and numbers. So it's pretty much all plans looking forward here for this 93 machine, and now it's just a waiting game with the way this sort of race has kind of panned itself out. I do see a couple cars close on track that weren't close just a handful of laps ago. Robert Grosser and Timo Ice-Niemi are separated by not a whole lot out there on the racetrack, are the teammates.
No, that gap has closed down. So the two teammates battling for 4th position. Looks as though maybe Robert Grosser starting to struggle, or Timo Ice-Niemi starting to pull that gap in. Maybe one of them's had a bit of an issue and lost some time, potentially a half spin over the last couple of laps.
Ooh, a good last lap for Matt Cook, a full second quicker, and he's got it down to a 1.5 seconds. Matt may have found a little bit of something here toward the tail end of the stint.
So for Matt Cook, you are indeed correct. That could be interesting to see how that works. 1.4 seconds now to the good is Josh Chin. 1.2 as they head themselves down into turn at number 3. And very soon, Matt Cook will have that advantage of the draft here, Randy, which is, as you said before, not very... You don't get much from the draft around here at Belle Isle, but there is that 2 long straight sections where it is going to be helpful.
Yeah, you're right about that for Matt Cook right now. So it's go time. And actually, Matt Cook has set the newest fastest of the lap of the race in the last couple trips around the racetrack. So Matt has found just a little bit to be able to reel that gap down and in as much as he has.
1.3 seconds split the two as they head themselves into the fountain section for the 52nd time. It's going to be in the next 10 laps that Matt Cook's going to be paying a visit to the pit lane for his final stop. Then we'll find out whether he's going fuel only, or whether he will go for the fuel and tyre strategy. It will be interesting to see. It may be a case of Matt Cook trying to close that gap. And I thought he was going to come down to the pit lane. He is indeed. So Cook has decided that now is the time to pit for his 2nd stop of the race. So surely this is going to be a tyre stop as well as a fuel stop for Mr. Cook in that number 6 machine. He's going to crawl down at 63 kilometers an hour, come to a stop, and up on the jacks he will go. Through will go Joni Kainen, through will go Robert Grosser and Timo Ice-Niemi potentially, but probably not. So Kainen has moved himself up into 2nd. Matt Cook is out and away in 8.1 seconds. And the battle for 4th position between Robert Grosser and Timo Ice-Niemi has actually changed places. So Ice-Niemi's managed to get Robert Grosser on this lap. And as they cross the lines, that will update on the timing screens. So Timo Sanyemi's promoted himself up into 4th position. Robert Grosser dropping down into 5th. He's got about a minute and a half back to Marshall Stanley, so there's not going to be any worries there for his 5th position. But Joshua Chin now, he's 29 seconds to the good over Matt Cook, and he's not got to stop again. So this could be the domination which Josh Chin needed. He doesn't have to worry about lap times now. He just needs to worry about hitting those fuel numbers and making sure he can get to the end. As Josh Chin heads himself down into turn number 3 for the 54th time. Last time around, still setting good lap times, 1 minute 16.7. Unikainen setting a 1 minute 16.6, but he's 20 seconds behind, so he's not going to be close enough to challenge at all in the remainder of this event, bearing in mind that he's also going to have to make a pit stop as well to make sure that he can see the checkered flag at the end of this race. And I don't know whether I just saw a little bit of wall contact from Josh Chin. It was very close as he heads himself up into turn number 6. He's now on the run down to turn number 7. No other battles close out on the circuit. The battle between Timo Sanyemi and Robert Grosser, the 2 Logical Vortex teammates, seems to have played out. Timo Sanyemi just slowly pulling away. Last time around, he was 0.8 of a second faster than Robert Grosser, his teammate. Obviously, Robert Grosser, the 3-time champion of the Classic Indycar Series, and until last year, he was the only person to ever win this series overall. Henry Bennett changed that, though. He's the reigning champion. He's out of this race today. He hit trouble just about an hour ago, and he was taken out of this one in that 001 machine. After starting in 7th position, he's going to finish today as a non-finisher. Another driver who was looking very quick today was Jos van der Ven, qualifying very well. Usually qualifies in the midfield, but qualified right at the front of the field today. But unfortunately, he hit trouble just after his pit stop and ended up in the wall and took another one out of this race. Of course, today has been a high attrition rate. We're down to 9 cars running on the track. So for the likes of Franz Josef Sturm, Daniel Schulmeister and Andrew Wood, the guys running in 7th, 8th and 9th, it means that they're going to get a good points haul here today. They're going to walk away today knowing that finishing this race was a good thing to do, that they're going to go into the next round of the championship really strong in that midfield section of the point standings, because that's usually where it can get quite interesting, get quite exciting as well with the points. And for those guys, it's going to play off very well today. Matt Cook is setting blisteringly fast lap times after being in the pit lane. Still got the fastest lap of the race as well, a 1 minute 16.220. He's still 30 seconds behind Josh Chin, and that's 30 seconds that he's not going to be able to make up over the course of the next 17 laps. But you never know, he's only about 10 seconds. He's going to get that position back on Unikainen as well. He's 10 seconds up the road. Kainen's still yet to make his 2nd stop of the motor race. So he's going to be able to get himself back past as soon as Unikainen decides that pit lane is where he wants to be. He's not going to be this time around, though. He's just crossed the line to start his 26th lap of this 2nd fuel run. Lap number 56 of the race so far today. He's still sitting about 20 seconds behind Josh Chin. So actually no changes in that gap 4 between positions number 1 and 2. That's going to be interesting to see whether that does differentiate. We'll have to keep an eye on the lap times of Josh Chin as we head into these final few stages, see whether he really does have to start heavily fuel saving in that 93 machine to get to the end without having to make a splash and dash, because if he does, that means it could be very tight between himself and Matt Cook come the end of this race, and almost to the point where Matt Cook might be able to pip him just because he has to come down onto pit lane, maybe running slower lap times. Marshall Stanley from 6th position now. He's down onto pit lane in the number 25. He's going to come to a stop in his box. Up on the jacks, he will go to get a new set of tyres, and he's going to fill the tank with fuel to get himself to the end. 16 laps remaining in this race now. Back out and away is the number 25 machine, up 9 positions on where he started in this race. Daniel Schulmeister as well has just been down onto pit lane to get his final stop of the race. The drivers left to do so, Unikainen and Timo Sanyemi and Robert Grosser, I think they're going to go as far as possible into this stint. Still looking at around 6 to 8 laps for these guys in the remainder of this race, as Robert Grosser deciding that the curbs, riding those curbs really high. Got to be careful not to damage any of the car, damage the underfloor as well. That could really hurt, Because if he does, as Franz Josef Sturm has hit trouble, he's crabbing onto pit lane. There was contact, and there was a car involved, and it was Matt Cook. So Matt Cook has been involved in an incident. He's back out and going again, but he doesn't have a front wing on that number 6 machine. So for Matt Cook, all of a sudden, he's looking pretty dangerous, and this could be race over for him as he heads himself into turn number 5 up towards turn number 6. It's going to be pretty dangerous for Matt Cook now. He's going to be losing a lot of time. This could fall him into the hands of Timo Sanyemi and Robert Grosser. Potentially also a second pit stop to get that change of front wing. As he heads himself down into the fountain section for the first time without a front wing, this is going to be where he's going to realise that there isn't much aero left on that car. He's going to let through Daniel Schulmeister. This is going to be a third stop for Matt Cook. And I think this is day over as well for the number 6 machine. Pretty much also handing that second place to the driver of Joni Kajanen. So Kajanen is able to advantage just from Matt Cook's misfortune. Timo Sanyemi goes through. So does Robert Grosser. They will have themselves up to the start-finish line. Matt Cook will head himself down onto pit lane, so he's going to get himself a new front wing and head down into the box. Get himself repaired and back out. 15 laps remaining now here at Belle Isle. It's all about who can get it to the end now safely. We're seeing more drivers hit trouble. We're down to 8 drivers left racing. Matt Cook's going to stop. He's going to get himself a new front wing on that car. Back out and away he will go. So pit stop time is 6.3 seconds, but it's dropped him down to 5th in the field. So he's going to be running last of everyone on the lead lap. Could potentially get the positions back on Timo Sanyemi and Robert Grosser, but it's going to be close because they passed him. They passed him as he headed himself onto pit lane. So he's already on the back foot. And he's now a lap down on Josh Chin as well. So Josh Chin has just been handed even more of a gift as we head ourselves into the closing stages of this motor race. Still hitting those fuel numbers as Chin. Still setting blisteringly fast lap times as well. It's going to get interesting. But of course today's race is brought to you by Iconics Graphics. They're proud to sponsor the 2019 Belle Isle and also the Las Vegas race later on this year. They will support all of your personalised vinyl needs, including car wraps, decals, t-shirts, hats and more. And whether you have a league like the Classic Indycar Series, whether you want to create shirts for you, or you want a decal of your team's logos on your desktop tower, Iconics Graphics can do it all. You can check them out on Instagram at iconics_graphics, and that's graphics with an X for more details. If you mention the Classic Indycar Series, you will receive a 10% discount. And they will also be donating 4 t-shirts to the overall champion, the oval champion, the road champion, and the rookie of the year of the 2019 Logykal Classic Indycar Series. So another sponsor coming on board. And as we head into the closing stages of the race, of course, sponsorships are available here at the Classic Indycar Series. You can send them an email, send them a private message on iRacing, and we can find out more details from them as to what needs to be done. As we head ourselves into the final stages of this second fuel run for a lot of these drivers now. They need to be thinking about when to make this second fuel stop. Joni Kajanen is currently on his 30th lap of his stint. I seem to remember him running long into the first one. Maybe not. I think Joni Kajanen may be visiting the pit lane pretty shortly, potentially on this lap, so he'll be in for a full service, the final full service of the race. Timo Sanyemi and Robert Grosser, they're still sort of 27, 28 laps into their stint. Maybe a case of they can run a little bit longer, have a shorter pit stop, but whether they take tyres or not will be interesting. Andrew Wood now in the number 32 from 6th position is down onto the pit lane to get his second stop of the race. He's going to lose positions to Marshall Stanley, who's currently exiting himself out of turn number 13. And as he heads through the turn 14 complex, Andrew Wood actually is going to be getting out and going. This is going to be close as they head themselves through turn 1 and 2. The exit of pit lane, Andrew Wood will go. Marshall Stanley just there in the background. So Andrew Wood holds on to 6th position. as he heads himself out of the pit lane, but he's only about 1.4 seconds to the good over that driver of Marshall Stanley as they head themselves into turn number 3. There's only 4 or 5 car lengths between the two. This could be close as we head into the final stages. Untitled has come in, got a stop, 7.4 seconds. He's back out again, the 77. But Team Yami and Robert Grosser have both carried on. There's enough of a gap for the positions not to change between them. As Yami heads himself down into turn number 3, he's going to look to the inside of Untitled, and Kynan is going to shut the door on the apex. There wasn't the room there for Yami to put the nose up the inside, and a sensible decision not to put a challenge on as they headed into this very tight and twisty section of the racetrack. Somewhere where we have seen many an incident over the last 12 months since we got Belle here on the iRacing service. Of course, Ricardo Castrolado as well, ending up on his roof on the opening stages of the first round of the Porsche Pro qualifying series here at Belle just after turn number 3. A lot of incidents happening in that race. A lot of incidents happening today as well. Just 8 cars left out on the racing surface. So a lot of people finding trouble here. And of course, Classic IndyCar Series not running the fast repair for 2019, meaning these drivers do not have the second chance that they used to get last year. And that's taken a lot of people out of today's race and maybe cost some people an exciting race today. It's been, I wouldn't like to call it a procession, but everyone sort of fanned themselves out, made their own bit of racetrack and just kept themselves to themselves. Still got that battle for second going on, still got the battle for 6th going on out of the track. The battle for second will stop when Timo Yami brings himself down as a pit lane, but the battle for 6th looks like it may be here for the remainder of this event because both drivers have now made their pit stop. As Marshall Stanley and Andrew Wood both head themselves into the fountain section of the racetrack. 32 leading the 25. And they will exit there. This double right-hander that these guys are now approaching a very difficult corner because you can very easily track out wide. You don't want to track out too wide because the corner will bite, the wall will bite, and so will those curbs as well. You get loose on the curbs, you're pretty much into the wall. There's not much more you can do as these guys will enter the last 10 laps of this race. Joshua Chin as well into the last 10 laps of this motor race. And he's going to be getting very close on fuel numbers, still setting very competitive lap times, still looking very quick up at the front of the field. He's got a 50-second lead over anyone in this field by the looks of things. That could be because of the pit stops. It is not. That is how big the gap is for Josh Chen out front. So even if he makes a splash and dash, he will still walk away with a nice finish here into victory lane. Robert Grosser is down onto the pit lane to make his final stop. This will be the last driver to do so, by the looks of things, other than Timo Yami, who is looking like he's about a lap behind on Robert Grosser's strategy. So Grosser is in. Up on the jacks he will go to get a new set of tyres, and he will go back out onto the racing surface for the remaining 10 laps of the race. Matt Cook's going to go past Robert Grosser. So Cook's managed to promote himself up into 4th position. Whether he'll be able to do the same for Timo Yami, I'm not sure. I think it's going to be too close for the 43 to be or the 6 to be challenging the 43 when it exits its pit lane. But we will find out in the next few minutes as Timo Yami heads himself into the fountain section for the 63rd time of this motor race. And we will find out in just a few moments' time whether this will be the lap that he decides that pit lane is where he wants to be. Still trailing Untitled by about a second. Hasn't been able to put any pressure on, hasn't decided to go for an overtake either. As he heads himself into 12 and 13, getting a little bit loose through 12. Looking good through 13. Is he going to stick right for the pit lane? He is indeed. So Timo Yami, the last driver to make a pit stop here today at Belle, is going to come down. Where is Matt Cook out on the track as Daniel Schulmees to his issues just before the pit entry? But Matt Cook still running behind Josh Chen a lap down. And will the driver of Timo Yami get out ahead? I think he will. He's back out and away. He's going to turn off the pit limiter just about now. And past will go Matt Cook. So Matt Cook looks as though he may have managed to get himself back on the podium. He hasn't. It was almost contact as they headed themselves through turn number 3, but wasn't to be. Matt Cook has managed to promote himself back up onto the podium after his incident with the 08 machine and having issues. as they head themselves through 4 and 5. Everything looking good with Matt Cook, very unlucky, losing that second position. It's going to be too much work for him to gain that back on Untitled. It's about 20 seconds behind that he is from the Finn in the number 77. 30 seconds, in fact, he's behind of Untitled, and I just don't think it's going to happen here today for Matt Cook. Third place is going to have to be what he settles with, but Timo Sinyemi could always put on the pressure and try and bring it back. You never know. He's still looking competitive for that win. Not win, the podium, sorry, for Josh Chin, as he's leading the 2 rounds, still in those fuel numbers. 17.8 last time around, so maybe starting to decide that he needs to slow those lap times down a bit to hit those fuel numbers. As I said, that he does a 1 minute 16.6, so clearly last time around just being a slow lap for Josh Chin. But he's still at the front of this field, just 7 laps remaining here at the Belle Isle Street Course. To head themselves down into turn number 3. Everyone else looking like a little bit behind. Matt Cook was been able to pull away from Timo Sinyemi, having a little bit more of an advantage, having tyres up to pressure, tyres up to temperature. Timo Sinyemi's were not on that outlap, and he just wasn't able to match the speed of Matt Cook. Still, however, 2 seconds behind that driver, so still could pull it back, but it looks like it probably won't happen now, as this group heads themselves into the fountain section. Josh Chin, I think Matt Cook now just deciding that he needs to sit behind, not put any pressure on. It's a lap down from Josh Chin. It'd be silly to make any silly moves. He's got a nice 3rd position in the bag. There's no way that he can gain himself any positions any higher in the order. He can only drop down because, of course, Timo Sinyemi just 2 seconds behind. Robert Grosser just 7 seconds behind. So, if anyone has an issue in this 3rd, 4th and 5th positions, very quickly someone can come along and snatch away that position that these drivers may be holding, especially for the podium. Nice points haul here, not only for the guys in the top 3, but also everyone out here today. Mid-pack is going to get a lot more interesting as we head into the next round of the series. Some drivers are going to be coming away with point scorings that they would never dream of getting when they started the season just a few months ago. It just shows how tricky Belle Isle is as a circuit to race on and just keep lapping around consistently. Of course, these guys are going to be going for an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes by the time we finish this motor race. And it's very much not only a test of endurance, but also a test of skill and technique. The fatigue's going to be setting in pretty soon for some of these guys. An hour and 40, hour and 50 on an oval, in retrospect, isn't as tough as an hour and 40 around Belle Isle. And that does show. Of course, the real world, second race of Detroit. And the real world's going to be here just after this race is concluded. Everything in Detroit is going to be ramping up, and I believe that's going to be a race which is going to be interesting to see. Of course, yesterday Alexander Rossi setting the pole, and Joseph Newgarden coming away with the win in race number 1. Who will take away the honours in race number 2 today. Back to the action here, not much going on at the moment. Everyone seems to be spread out on circuit. The 8 cars that are left running here at the Belle Isle Grand Prix, and we're going to take them aboard for a couple of laps with Matt Cook. Just 2.5 laps remaining here at the streets of Belle Isle for Josh Chin to bring it home. His fuel strategy seems to have played off brilliantly. He's done the thing that no one thought that anyone was possible. And he has done a one-stop strategy. And in 2 laps' time, we will find out whether that has paid off. He's still got a 53-second lead over Untitled. So, in fact, he can make a full-service pit stop and still bring it home onto victory lane. He's just got to survive the next 2 laps, make sure that he can bring it home and not throw it into a wall for Josh Chin. Today has been the day of redemption. Today has been the day where he hasn't had anything go wrong. It's all gone his way. He's had a brilliant strategy, and as he enters the penultimate lap of the Iconic Graphics Grand Prix of Detroit, he's looking very comfortable up at the front of the field. And of course, just behind Untitled in second position, Matt Cook is in third, Isn Yemi in fourth, and Robert Grosser fifth. Your top 5 still covered by it's just over a lap now, actually, about 1 minute and 25 seconds. Everyone else is at least 2 laps down. There's still only 8 cars out on the circuit. The last car running is going to be that driver of Daniel Schulmeister, 3 laps down. He's been quite consistent today, just hasn't had much pace over everyone else. And that has shown. The battle between Marshall Stanley and Andrew Wood for 6th position as well. That's fanned out just a little bit. The gap between those two now is 15 seconds. So one of them either hitting a few issues or those guys just not having the same pace between each other. And Marshall Stanley dropping back. And actually, last time around, Marshall Stanley had a lap time which was 6 seconds slower. So something not going right for the number 25. And hitting just a few issues. As Joshua Chin will round himself through turn number 14 and across the stripe once more. This means the white flag will fly. We have 1 lap remaining here at Detroit. And Josh Chin has just done the fastest lap of the motor race of 1 minute 15.858. We're getting on for quali times here. That quali time would have put him 3rd on the grid. Had he done that in qualifying, he didn't. He did a 1 minute 15.161. So the fuel numbers have been met for Josh Chin. He is all of a sudden foot down, eyes forward. He is really going for it in these closing stages here at Detroit as he exits himself out of turn number 6 for the final time. Down the down Strand Drive he will go towards the fountain section. Just a few more corners to navigate, and it'll be race win number 2 for 2019 for Josh Chin. On the brakes he will get for turn number 7. Avoid the wall that we've seen cars end up in the duration of this race. Through the bumpy fountain section. Make sure that outside wall isn't touched, because that will bite pretty hard. Watch those curbs, because they will also unsettle the car. Just 3 more corners separate Josh Chin and his 2nd win of the 2019 Classic IndyCar Series. Right he will go. Right he will go. Contact with the wall he has. And for Josh Chin, it is going to be a dominating race on 1 pit stop. He has won in style here at Detroit. And for Josh Chin, it's a race win. 2nd place is going to go to the driver of Untitled, who's now going to be exiting himself through turn number 6. But Matt Cook has crossed the line to finish 3rd. Team Isn Yemi has crossed the line to finish 4th. Robert Grosser has crossed the line to finish 5th. And it'll be Andrew Wood who's going to finish 6th. Marshall Stanley has pulled off to the side of the road. Well, I'm not sure he's quite done with this race just yet. He might be. Daniel Schulmeister as well. The last car running in the standings. He's going to bring himself across the line now. So Joni Kainen is going to be the final driver by the looks of things to cross the line. And he will head himself through turns 12 and 13. A brilliant run as well for that number 77 car today. He's been very quick, very strong all day, and was able to triumph off of Matt Cook's disappointment, and he will cross the line to finish 2nd. A brilliant run today. Everyone has now finished, and we can take you through your finishing standings. Well, Josh Chin did what no one else was able to do. 1 pit stop and a 58-second lead by the end of this race, and he was able to come away in victory lane. Joni Kainen is going to be coming home in 2nd, the only other driver left on the lead lap of this motor race. Matt Cook's going to be 3rd, Team Isn Yemi 4th, Robert Grosser 5th, Andrew Wood 6th, Marshall Stanley 7th, and Daniel Schulmeister are going to be running out the 8 cars that will finish this motor race today. Franz Josef Sturm, Johnny Garrett, Carsten Bromfer, Jos van der Ven, Hans Pitkanen, Henry Bennett, Lucas Seville, Thomas Seeger, Andrew Aitken, Andrew Adair, Saunders, Mike Gerlicher, Jan Hoffman, Tristan Hauser, Josh Baird and Matt Marner are going to be the non-finishers. Randy Shoemake, Jonathan Diggs and Zach Svahar are going to be the non-starters. We're going to step aside for just a moment here on RaceSpotTV, and we will be back with post-race coverage here from the streets of Detroit.
Voice of the Lucas Oil Off-Road Racing Series. Introducing Pro 2 and Pro 4 trucks on iRacing. Game on!
The 2019 Iconics Graphics Grand Prix of Detroit is of course brought to you by Iconics Graphics. They will support all of your personalized vinyl needs, including car wraps, decals, t-shirts, hats, and more. Whether you have a league like the Classic Indycar Series that you want to create shirts for, or you want a decal for your team's logo on your desktop tower, Iconics Graphics can do it all. You can visit them on Instagram at Iconics Graphics for more details. And if you mention the Classic Indycar Series, you will receive a 10% discount. They will also be giving away 4 shirts for the overall champion, the oval champion, the road champion, and the rookie of the year from the 2019 Logykal Classic Indycar Series. And as always, the Classic Indycar Series brought to you by Logykal Innovative Engineering. They make full motion simulators and other products for the sim racing world. You can give them a quick search on the Google and you can find out what they are all about. Well, today has been all about one man. It's been about Josh Chin, and he has stood by me in victory lane. Josh, you went for an alternate strategy. One stop. That must have been a really long race of just cruise control.
It really was. We talked about it a little bit in the pre-race. Oh, maybe we could get this done. And after 2-3 laps in, we basically had a big enough gap where it's like, okay, let's try it, because no one's on top of us. And even then, it didn't seem like anyone was pushing. And yeah, it worked out great.
And obviously, second win of your year, it's also a bit of a redemption today, I guess, for you, because it means that you, first of all, you got through a race without spinning or hitting a wall or hitting any other cars. And that's got to be a triumph for you, knowing that you have had some bad luck so far this year, but also you've now got that knowledge of, right, I've got 2 race wins, still got half the season left. I've still got a chance at this championship.
Yeah, it was really nice, and unfortunately Matt had some bad luck, but that also helped. He lost a spot to Joni, so that's a little bit more ground in the championship. I know I gave up a lot at Indianapolis, so from here on out, it's just making up that lost ground again, and today's a good start towards that.
Oh, Josh, very quickly, before we let you go and celebrate with your team, who'd you like to give a shout-out to today?
I got to give a huge shout-out to Jamie. He was monitoring the fuel strategy all race, and everything worked out beautifully because of that. Everyone in Team Chimera and Team Talent. It's everyone at Classic Indycar, Robert, Lucas, everyone in that administration. It's a great series to run, and I wish we had maybe a few more cars show up today, but overall it's still a really fun series to run every week.
And well, that's Josh Jim bringing it home onto victory lane here on the streets of Detroit for his second win of 2019 with an alternate fuel strategy. And the driver who was looking good all race long to put on the pressure at the very start, especially to try and maybe take that win off of Joshua Chin, was Mr. Matt Cook. Matt, first of all, congratulations on the podium. We saw you get tangled up in an instant just after your second pit stop. What happened in all that?
More or less just some tagged the wall, and I ended up just going into him. I couldn't react fast enough given the position on track because it was exiting the final corner there, which is a little bit higher pace, and you're kind of close to the wall. So I got tangled up, and unfortunately didn't get the call that I didn't have a wing until I had already passed the pit entry. Otherwise, I would have gone in right away and tried to minimize the time and damage. So. Unfortunately, I had to take the other lap around and went with it.
And obviously, you weren't able to come away from the win today. You're still going to be in the championship lead. Josh is looking very strong coming away from Detroit. Are you going to start getting worried about your championship now? Maybe Josh could start challenging again?
There's always a worry that Josh could start challenging again. Not a lot has changed since him and I last raced against each other. So, I mean, his capability always amazes me, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the rest of the season plays out.
And of course, Matt, very quickly before we let you go and celebrate your podium with your team, who'd you like to give a shout out to today?
Definitely a big shout out to Randy and Andrew for the support and the spotting throughout the race when they could, and more or less great job to Josh on coming back without continuing his spinning curse, so it's nice to see that.
And while there's Matt Cook finishing in second position today, and we're going to catch up with one more driver before we will wrap up today, and that's going to be Robert Grosser. He came home in fifth position today, and I was speaking to him just for the race, Robert. You were saying that you weren't feeling that quick today, but you put it third on the grid. Clearly you found something in qualifying that maybe you didn't have in practice.
I was quite surprised by my own qualifying lap and P3 as a result of it, to be very honest. But I knew that for the race itself, I was really not in the right mindset, quite lacking some confidence, lacking some practice also, and I was really backwards orientated, to say it in that way. I knew that I could never ever keep P3.
And obviously, looking forward to the rest of the season. Next time out, we are going to Iowa for the Iowa Corn 250. And then Pocono at the end of June as well, in 4 weeks' time, the second round of the Triple Crown. They two circuits which are strong for you. Maybe you come away with a good points haul and boost you up the standings just that little bit.
Yeah, I need to score some good points. I mean, even today, P5 is fine. It could have been P3, but would have. All this doesn't matter when someone makes a little mistake. I was just kissing the wall, having slight suspension damage, and then these things happen. It can also happen in these ovals. So yeah, big congrats to Josh for showing such an amazing victory here today with only one pit stop, and also to Yoni and Matt, congrats for finishing on the podium. That was very impressive.
And well, there's Robert Grosser. Very quickly, Robert, who would you like to give a shout out to today for Logykal Vortex Sim Racing?
Yeah, for Logykal Vortex, as always, Logykal, and for today's race, big shout out to Iconic Graphics for being title sponsor today of the race. Thanks.
And well, that's just about all we have time for here on RaceSpotTV and on the iRacing Esports Network for the Iconics Graphics Detroit Grand Prix. I have been Jack Stiles, alongside me has been Randy Chenworth, all race long. As always, we give a massive shout out at RaceSpot to Istvan Balal, to Simon Grossman, and to Nick Thyssen, along with Advern Designs, for providing us with the overlays, the live timing, and the track cameras that you see out on the circuit today. But from Detroit, we bid you good night and enjoy the real world race.